coagulation or scabs to form. Now, despite that massive injury, we must remember that these wild animals are incredibly resilient and can often surprise us at the rates at which they can heal and the injuries that they can completely recover from. And it is not our role or duty to intervene in a scenario like this, even though a lot of you will be thinking, well, why can't we help this young zebra? We wouldn't be doing wildlife any favors if we were to intervene, and it's important for us to sit back and only spectate what goes on out here, as opposed to try and intervene and play Mother Nature. So we won't be doing any intervening, but we will certainly be able to keep a close eye on that zebra. And quite often you see on zebra where their stripes usually matched up, but in a scenario like that where their skin's been completely severed, the stripes may regrow in an abstract fashion. So it's not uncommon to see zebras like that, and they very often actually kick line off them. They've got very powerful hind quarters, and when lions jump onto their rumps, 2 flying hooves from the zebra is often enough to dislodge the lions, but sometimes it leaves a gaping wound that most of the time heals. So we don't have to worry too much. And isn't it wonderful that this is all happening live? This is a live safari, and if you are joining for the first time, please let us know. Send us questions, comments, thoughts, and it's very easy to do so. You could hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or send an email through to questions@wildearth.tv. I'll apologize in advance if we don't get your questions answered immediately, but keep trying. There's a lot of people on board this vehicle this afternoon. And we've already got our first question through, and it's from Elise, and she used Twitter as her mode of getting the message across to me. Hello Elise, good to have you with us. Now, as we all saw, that is quite a serious injury, and Elise is interested to know, what do I think the chances of survival are of this young foal? Now, at the short glances and brief moments we did get to see the wound, I think it's got a strong chance of surviving. So I think the odds are still heavily stacked in the young foal's favor. And like I said earlier, it's incredible how tough and resilient these wild animals are. We forget how soft us as humans have become with doctors and medicine, whereas the animals, oh, John has just seen it's popped into an opening again, so he's going to try and get you one more view of it. It's tricky, it's such thick bush here, and I don't want to put any unnecessary pressure on this individual zebra and its herd. It's a very windy afternoon, and in windy conditions a lot of the herbivores will be especially nervous because they cannot hear the predators approaching them. So we don't want to fluster them or cause them any unnecessary discomforts, as they already have probably been fairly recently chased by a lion. I don't think that wound is from last night. I think it could possibly be from a couple of days ago. It's not extremely fresh, I don't think. And at least the wound is in a position where the wagging tail that you can see now is going to brush away any flies, preventing them from laying their eggs. That would be one of the major concerns that I think of that this zebra is up against, and that is if flies manage to lay their eggs in there and maggots start feeding on it, then it'll be in big trouble. But that tail wagging is hopefully going to keep the flies at bay. And hopefully we'll just be able to keep an eye on the zebra. They do move quite large distances and won't necessarily stay on Djuma. But I think over the next few days we might get lucky and be able to keep you guys updated on its movements and on its healing process. And earlier on I touched on how it's important for us to remain spectators in this wonderful wilderness and not to intervene. And the only times that we will intervene is with endangered animals like wild dog and cheetah. And even then, careful thought is given to the reason for intervening. And X-Rang has just sent through a wonderful comment which really sums things up well. And the comment goes like this. It says, by helping one, you are disadvantaging another. And that's exactly correct, because we must remember that there's a lot of carnivores out here, hyena, leopard, lion, some of which may be struggling or have young cubs to feed, and this potentially easy meal, if the zebra foal does deteriorate, may make the difference of life or death for another animal out here. So well done, X-Rang, and that's a great way of putting it. The good news is, for the zebra that's injured and all the other members of the herd, is that there's a lot of fresh green grass shoots that have been sprouting up over the last week. It was about a week ago till today that I think we got our first rains, and we got a good substantial amount, between 20 and 30 millimeters. It rained for almost 24 hours consistently, and it's been remarkable watching the vegetation come to life, and also seeing how happy a lot of the herbivores are now that they can feed on some tasty, more luscious materials, as it was a very tough dry season for them, and we didn't get nearly as much rain as we should have during the last summer. So they'll be loving these fresh green shoots, and it'll also help this young foal recover from this injury that it has. I was hoping to find another zebra within this herd where the stripes don't exactly match up from a previous lion attack, but I can't seem to see any with it. It's almost quite often that you see them. Almost one zebra per herd has those telltale scars or signs of a previous attack. And interestingly enough, I told you about how powerful their hind quarters are and how they can kick prey off them, or predators off them. I heard a story of a male leopard that had tried to attack a zebra, and it received one of these flying hooves directly between the eyes and was knocked out, completely unconscious. The guides in the sighting thought the leopard was dead, but a few minutes later it shook its head and woke up, obviously wondering what happened. So there's nothing saying it wasn't a leopard that didn't try and attack this foal. Another potential animal that may have attacked the foal, but I don't think it's likely, but it's important that we think about it, is a bachelor herd of stallions. And these bachelor herds of stallions can cause quite a lot of trouble for young foals, and as they come in and try and overthrow the dominant stallion, trying to steal the ladies within his harem, the stallions can often take it out on the young foals. No different to the Birmingham male lions, who are busy trying to acquire this territory as their own. And they've killed quite a few lioness up to date, and we've just got reports midday that another one of the Styx lioness was found dead very close to the area of where the Birmingham boys were last night. And there was also a lot of tracks of male lions around her carcass. The guides seemed to think it was the same female that was attacked, interestingly enough, by the Madiba males about a week ago. But a lot of the carcass had been fed on by the males, and all likely the Birmingham boys. And infanticide between males that are trying to acquire females, even throughout the different species, is more common than we actually realize. I really love this interactive safari because it's so often you guys that spring up very interesting questions and thoughts, and Linda's just brought up a very, very good point. And she said, won't other predators be able to smell the blood from this wound and increase the likelihood of this foal being attacked? I think you're certainly right, Linda. The predator that comes to mind for me is in all likelihood the hyena. And even though hyena are often regarded as scavengers, they can be highly formidable hunters when they need to. And this for me is an example of something that would capture the attention of hyenas with their extremely powerful sense of smell. And they could quite easily use their stamina to run down this weakened and injured foal. So that would be my first bet. And then again, even if any other predator did stumble upon this foal, be it lion or leopard, they would look very closely for any weaknesses, and they'd quite easily be able to pick up on that one, and then therefore be able to target that individual zebra. Well, a bit of a sad start, but like I said, it's important to remember that these animals are very, very tough, and I don't think that zebra has got anything serious to worry about just yet. Even though the wound is serious, I'm fairly confident that it still stands a good chance of surviving. And because they've moved off into thick vegetation now, we're going to meander our way out of this area and continue up probably to the northeastern parts of Djuma. I would like to get onto the northern boundary, as there was 4 lionesses that were seen this morning, in all likelihood the Nkahuma pride, or the remaining members thereof. There used to be 8 members in the pride. There was no sign of Junior this morning, who's a young male within the pride, and just 4 lionesses. And they weren't far from our northern boundary. And I think James is thinking about heading across to Arethusa to search for Shadow and Madiba, a female leopard and a 1-year-old cub. I touched on the fact that one of the main things that I think the zebra needs to be concerned for is if flies manage to lay their eggs on this wound. And once the maggot sets in, I think that'll cause a problem. However, Deborah's just sent through a thought or a comment all the way from Canada, and she suggested that will the maggots not help, because they'll only be feeding on the dead and rotten flesh, therefore kind of keeping the wound clean. I don't think that is the case necessarily, Deborah. I certainly understand the angle you're coming from, but I feel that if the maggots get in there, they will create almost further rotting and eat more than just the rotting flesh. We must remember that flies don't need to eat only rotting flesh. They will certainly be happy to feed on it, but if you were to put maggots on anything that was still quite fresh, they would still be able to eat their way through it, and I think they would just keep that wound open, and every single little time that the zebra tries to heal that wound, they'll just keep it open and seeping and wet and not let it actually seal up. So like I said, it's a very windy afternoon. It's completely overcast. That's only happened in the last 2 hours or so. It's partly cloudy throughout the day, and I don't think that these clouds are going to bring us any rain necessarily, but there may be a little bit of gentle drizzle later, and it's certainly made for nice cool conditions. It's about 25 degrees Celsius, 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and I consider these cooler afternoons as we head into our summer blessings, because the heat in summer can be quite serious. Just saying hello to Mike, who is the husband of the camp manager here at Vuyatela and Gallagher camps on Djuma. And I think he was on his way back from collecting his daughter from pre-primary school just outside the reserve. Well, if some of you are joining for the first time, I have the privilege of sending you across to the other vehicle in which you will find James and Brian on camera. They're both wonderful guys and serious characters, so you're in for a good time. Enjoy the search for Shadow and Madiba and anything else exciting over there.
Hello everybody, welcome to Jigger on what is a blustery and rather chilly afternoon. My hat has remained backwards as it was this morning, a gangster style. Brian taught me how to do a gangster sign, and that is because it is threatening to blow off my bonds, which I don't wish it to do because it is my sun hat and very important in the hot African sun, which is not shining right now. My name is James Henry, in case you were wondering who this buffoon addressing you is, and on camera today we have Brian the Thumb. There he is, and we are on far west Arathusa trying to see what we can find. There were reports of Shadow's tracks and perhaps those of her young son Madiba. We haven't come up with anything yet, but that is what our fervent hope is today, to try and find the two of them. If not, however, it is an entertaining, if eerie and slightly chilly afternoon, and we'll see what else we can find. Please remember, you are on a live game drive safari. If you happen to have stumbled across this website, or especially if you're watching it at work, that's a much better idea than staring at a spreadsheet or your emails, or indeed, especially if you happen to be sitting in a meeting, 90% of which, in my experience, seem to be a deep waste of time. Rather watch this, it's far more entertaining. And you may ask us questions, you may answer them too if you like. Ask us questions, hashtag Safari Live on tweet, or questions at WildEarthTV if you wish to address us on the email. Not a bad idea if you're at work. You can certainly pretend to be sending an important work email. Just send it to questions at WildEarth.tv and we will get onto it with some far more interesting wilderness snippets from here in the wilds of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park, the western fringes thereof. Right, let us carry on without further ado. I believe Scott has been showing you a zebra that has managed to get itself into a bit of a tangle, it sounds like, with some lions. Very scary for that zebra, and yeah, I'm sure, like Scott told you, they're pretty good at surviving those sorts of injuries, unless there's a genuine broken bone, and somehow they manage to escape infection quite well, which I think is amazing. Trying to get a little bit of an update here on the radio. That's why my eyes have opened like this. I'm trying to understand what's going on the radio. Monique in London, I believe this is just your second time watching. Welcome. We love to hear from you, and thank you for talking to us. You were watching Shadow and her cub Madiba last night, and you're wondering what happened to them. You say the Birmingham boys were approaching them at a great speed. Monique, this was an incorrect report. It was in fact 4 lions from the Styx Pride. They weren't approaching her directly, so I'm pretty sure she's okay. And her tracks ended up around here somewhere last night, and that's what we're going to try and follow up on as we speak. Thank you for your question, and please keep watching. Hopefully we'll be able to show you young, well, she's not so young anymore, old Shadow, well, she's not old either, Shadow and her cub Madiba later on. We've got a African hawk eagle, I think. It is indeed an African hawk eagle hiding in the branches. Beautiful bird, normally in pairs. Don't know where its wife or husband is, can't tell if that's a male or a female. There's a bird calling nearby, and it's a ground-dwelling bird, and you might be able to hear it. It's called a red-crested cohan. Now that red-crested cohan, which looks like a little bustard, not a buzzard, would be very afraid of that hawk eagle were it to be spotted. Now when the hawk eagle flew from its original perch to where it's sitting now, it flew low, below the tree line, and I wonder if it isn't, in a manner of speaking, stalking that red-crested cohan. They do like to eat ground-nesting birds, or certainly ground-dwelling birds like francolin and guinea fowl. And the red-crested cohan, although a little bit bigger than either of those two, it might try and eat them. I'm just going to get a quick update on the radio. There it goes. Look how difficult it is for a bird to fly in this wind. Oh, there's another one. There it is, that's the partner, look. They're now flying in two. A pas de deux in the gaily sky. Marvellous. Thank you, Brian. Well done. 2 African hawk eagles, thankfully as predicted. The update on the radio was a herd of elephants about 7 light years from here on a piece of land we're not allowed to traverse. So we're going to continue looking for Shadow and her little Madiba. Now, there was some bit of consternation. The Birmingham boys have been at their murdering ways again. They've killed another lion. They killed last night one of the Styx lionesses, and from the reports it would seem that it is this lioness that was originally attacked by the Madimbas that survived the attack somehow. And Elise, you wanted to know, or you were hoping fervently, that it wasn't the mother of the cub. Elise, it would seem not to be the mother of the cub. It would seem to have been one of those 2.5-year-old sub-adults that was originally attacked by the Madimbas. We don't know why, and now she's been killed by the Birmingham boys. And half eaten apparently. And apparently one of the Birmingham boys who looks, he's been referred to as the Terminator by a few people here. Nicky, I know in the final control, thinks he's not a particularly attractive looking fellow. His eyes are at odd levels and it's too close together. So I think that's who they're talking about. Looked like he was quite full this morning, so it may well have been him that caused the trouble. I suspect also, though, that there's a little bit of the legend of Richard III in that story, where just because he happens to look a little bit like Richard III looked, we tend to think of him as a villain. He might in fact not be at all. You like my analogy there, Brian? Thank you very much. No tracks at this stage, everybody. Hello, 16-year-old Carrie in Costa Rica. I hope Costa Rica's sunny and fine today. I must say I do want to go there one day, especially as it seems that the number of birds you find there will substantially outweigh the fairly intimidating diversity that we have here. Carrie, you want to know, what do I think's happened to Junior in the Pride? Seems he's not with them at the moment. The Pride, by the way, of the Nkuhumas is now on Buffelshoek, just 4 lionesses. And I think, Carrie, that he's probably okay. You know, he's an enormous lion at this stage. He's not fully grown yet, and I think he's fast enough and probably clever enough to get out of the way. And one of the postulations for why those Birmingham boys have killed so many Nkuhuma lionesses is that they have been defending Junior. Now, I'm not entirely convinced of this, because I've seen plenty of lionesses abandon their cubs when new males come in, precisely because they will be killed if they try and defend them, and that doesn't make any evolutionary sense. So I suspect quite strongly, well, it's possible that that's what's happened, but I'm just not really convinced. But what is for sure is that Junior will probably not be tolerated. By those marauding Birmingham fellows. Right, we're going to turn along this road here, see if we can't pick up further tracks. On a day like this, the cats will move, of course, and I'm pretty sure Scott's going to drive along the Buffelshoek cut line and see if the Nkuhumas haven't perhaps come south into Djuma. Of course, it would be a very safe option for them, because the Birminghams seem to be avoiding the area. Don't know why. Wish I knew. Now, Cindy in North Carolina, you are asking a question that I and probably many others are asking as well, while we look at a little herd of kudu going gently across this previously burnt area. Cindy, you want to know where the wild dogs are, and have you missed anything epic? Well, you certainly haven't missed anything that we haven't missed. We haven't seen the wild dogs for some time. And I think that's because what's happened is that they, well, first of all, they didn't den around us, and so, well, they just weren't spending a huge amount of time. Well, we did have a few nice sightings in June and July, but you know, once the pups start to move from the den, the entire pack will move a huge distance, and they have home ranges of about 450 square kilometers, 45,000 hectares, and up to 600. So this whole size of the Sabi Sands would be one wild dog home range. So it means once the pack starts to move and they all move together, the chances of us seeing them and having good sightings become that much more remote, because they are moving all over the place. And so that's why we haven't seen any for a little while yet. And you know, the other thing to remember is that we've had a couple of quiet drives on Djuma recently, and that is entirely normal. Sometimes animals just gravitate towards an area and sometimes they don't. So there's a huge amount of luck involved in all of that. And I think that we're going to have quite a lot of lion action on Djuma fairly soon, because it seems to be the center point on which this territorial takeover and all of the violence that's going on with the prides is taking place. Beautiful kudu, and you can just see some of the silver leaves, brand new silver leaves with the silver cluster leaf coming out there. Now this area, if you look around it, you have seen it, and you can see a couple of the black shoots there, was burned not this year but last year to clear away some of the dead grass that was around, and you can see very clearly that it did not destroy the trees. So a lot of people think that fire is a good way to bush clear and clear the bush. That is not the case. Right, let us continue. We are struggling a little bit with communications, so if your questions are not being answered immediately, I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to indicate to the final control that I am squeezing the radio. Ooh, Brian, there's a rather pretty little bird here that's just flown away. Can you see it there? Oh, lovely. So X-Ranger, there in Tasmania, you are obviously watching this morning and you'd like to know if I have done a test of the termite mound grass versus regular grass. I have not. I will do it shortly. That little bird that we're looking at is called a scimitar-billed wood hoopoo, and it looks a bit like a green wood hoopoo, except that it is black and has a black bill, not a bright red bill. It's got a lovely lilting call that goes there we go. And it's got that long beak. Unlike a hummingbird or a sunbird for drinking nectar, what you saw it doing there was probing. And it probes underneath the bark, and it was actually probing on a little piece of bark there that had a termite mound nest on it, or a termite nest on it, and the termites, so it'll go and knock off the dirt and eat out the termites. Very delicious are termites if you happen to be a scimitar-bill. Because of the nutritional content of the termite mound grass, and so we'll try and see if we can actually taste the difference between the two. Currently not seeing anything in the way of tracks. Therefore also her cub Madiba. Susan, you want to know, you said you saw a documentary with some frogs in it, or a toad, and one of which you said had teeth. And if I'm not mistaken, Susan, the only thing that has the frog that has teeth is the African bullfrog. And I will try and find you a picture of the little blighter now. He's not little at all, he's a very large fellow, and they do like to eat termites quite a lot. And I'll see if I can find you a picture of him now. Bullfrog. African bullfrog, page 70. I'm just trying to see. Here they are. It doesn't say anything about teeth, but I'm pretty sure that you're correct. I'm pretty sure that the African bullfrog has got, so well, they've got sort of teeth. There we go, enormous frog, probably about, it's 200 millimeters, so it's about 20 centimeters long, so roughly the same length as this book. If you can imagine an African bullfrog would fit sort of into my hand. Well, that's the giant bullfrog, and the African one not a huge amount smaller. Now one of them I do believe has teeth. I'm not sure which now, I'm slightly confused, but yes, I think they do. They're not teeth like you and I have teeth there. There'll be ridges that have grown along probably the side of the lips, so they're not actually teeth in the way that we have teeth. Okay, thank you, Suzanne. What a very good question. I'll try and find you one eventually. I don't think they'll be out yet because we haven't had quite enough rain yet. just hearing a vehicle drive past. There's... I don't think that's a track. Brian, do you see any tracks? No tracks at this stage. So if you're looking for leopard tracks, you must drive very slowly because they do tend to leave very little sign of themselves. Now, Sharon, in Pittsburgh, you are inadvertently confirming my little human psychology experiment. And that is that I have postulated that when we talk about male anything, except maybe termites, we talk about their size before we talk about anything else. And you've just asked, do I think that Madiba is going to grow into a much bigger leopard than any other leopard? No, I don't. I don't think he's an unusual size at all. I think he's a magnificent fellow, but I don't think he's any larger than any other leopard of a similar age. And I know that his father is pretty average size. He's a good sized male, but he's not. He's a little bit bigger than Mbula, a little bit smaller than Anderson, but not enormous by any stretch. So I don't think, therefore, that Shadow, at least that Madiba, is necessarily going to grow into a much larger leopard than anyone else would be. Now, it's so interesting that that is the attribute that we're looking for in these leopards and lions, size. Are they going to get bigger than the others? Because then it would mean that they are, I don't know what it would mean. But no, I don't think he's going to be any bigger. I'd be interested to know, Sharon, why you thought he might be bigger. I don't think he's an unusually large leopard for his age, but I'd be very interested to know why you thought he might be bigger. Where you're looking now, can you find the camera there, Brian? Okay, there's the camera of the Arethusa camera. That is it there, looking like Big Brother on top of a pole overlooking the water here. Now, what often happens is that the tireless people who watch our dam cams and do such a valuable job telling us what's going on with them, you often see animals and then struggle to tell us where they've gone. Seems to be a great deal of noise coming from the camp. I think there's some kids swimming in the pool. Please ignore that noise. It is not somebody being killed. It is just some playful noise. So directly in front of the dam, so if you look directly away from the camera, is north. We are sitting to the west of the camera, and obviously then to the right of the camera would be, of your picture, if you're looking at the Arethusa cam, would be east, and behind it is the lodge and the south. So if you do see an animal here and you want to let us know about it, please do let us know about it, and then tell us which way it's moving. If it's gone off to the right of your screen, it's gone east. If it's gone left, it's gone to the west. And if it's gone behind the screen into the lodge, then it's probably eating one of the guests. And if it's gone away, directly away from the dam, it's gone due north. And Djuma and Vuyatela, which is where Djuma is directly to the east of this and a little bit north. So I hope that perhaps clears it up a bit, gives you a bit more of a picture of what you're actually looking at from the camera. I don't think we should tarry here. The sound of frolicking children is wonderful if you happen to be at Disney World, but perhaps not so much in the wilderness. Okay, we're going to head across to Scott. I just spotted a bird here, but I'm not sure we'll be able to see it. It was a little bee-eater that had flown below the dam wall. He is looking for, not the bee-eater, Scott, he's looking for some lion tracks, so we'll pop across to him, see if he's having any success, and I will see you a little bit later.
Welcome back, everyone, to a very slow-moving vehicle. And there's some exciting prospects. The four lioness, in all likelihood part of the Nkuhuma pride, which we found on Buffalo's Hook this morning, have moved from where they were left, and it appears that they've, interestingly enough, been chasing some. Now that's a report from Aubrey. He's obviously had a first look on foot and found tracks of the lion running after some zebra, and apologies everyone, we're in a bit of a low-lying area there, so I think you lost both audio and picture from us. I'm guessing it should be back by now. And good to have you back. So the lions were somewhere moving around this area to the left of us. We're going to leave Aubrey to carry on tracking them. We've just passed the point where if they had have come into Djuma, we would have found their tracks. There is a very small chance we actually missed the tracks crossing this road, and as slow as we were driving, the conditions of both the road and the weather make for very difficult tracking. We would much prefer to have sun being cast from a low angle, either like sunrise or sunset, and that helps cast shadows on the track and makes them a lot easier to see. Whereas in flat light like this, when it's overcast or when the sun's directly above you, it makes tracking very difficult. So that's why I was rolling very slowly down the hill when you joined us, to try and make sure we didn't miss any of the telltale pads and pug marks of the lion. But I've got a strong feeling they still are on this property where we cannot go. And thankfully Aubrey as well as Ephraim, another one of the guides, are both actively searching for this lion. And if they do find them, if they do in the boundary, we can rethink our plans. But for now, we're going to continue east, and head towards the Buffalo's Hook waterhole and see if we can't find anything interesting there. I'm very happy to hear that James indicated and taught all of you guys which directions are which from the Arathusa waterhole, and I'm told he did the same thing at the Djuma waterhole the other day. For you guys, you give us those very useful updates on what animals may be seen there as a direction that they're moving, and it's critical for us to help relocate them sooner rather than later. So very clever move on his behalf. I think it's something we should possibly do more often, just to refresh everyone's memories of where the different directions are. I always wonder in these conditions. Quite a few different animals, some zebra like we were looking at earlier, those are easy to tell, as well as some kudu. These look like two youngsters, possibly born somewhere roughly this time last year, and they've got some hairstylists in the form of oxpeckers which comb their beak through the hair looking for parasites like ticks. And the kudu must be loving browsing on these new fresh green shoots. And it really does always amaze me every spring how quickly the growth is of these plants that have basically been lying dormant for 6 months of the year. Anyway, all the animals aren't necessarily hiding, but they do seem to move off, I guess, into thicker vegetation where it's less easy for us to see them and where it's more sheltered. The birds are no different. The birds are also fewer and further between at the moment. And this looks like a lone stallion, and he's probably quite happy to have bumped into this family of kudu, as it'll be extra security and lookout for him. He's possibly not old enough and big enough to have a harem of females to himself, and it's not uncommon to see lone males of various species tagging along with other families. And the kudu will also be benefiting because it's also an extra set of eyes and ears for them. So a win-win situation for everyone. And like I mentioned earlier, in the windy weather like this, the herbivores are going to be on extra high alert. It must be quite nerve-wracking not knowing whether the rustles you are hearing are caused by the wind or caused by a predator that could be approaching you. Wonderful. Well, we will leave them continuing north away from our boundary. And for those of you who are new to the show, let's just explain that these road boundaries are simply for the humans, whereas the animals have got completely free rein, and they could, if they wanted to, travel from here about 300 kilometers away, about 200 miles, into the north part of the Greater Kruger National Park. And the reason why the humans have got boundaries is to appear and what's the word I'm looking for? It slipped my mind. Anyway, your safari would feel far less exclusive if there were vehicles around every corner. So I think it's frustrating in ways that we can't follow certain animals, but I think it is for the greater good of everyone in this area when it comes to the game viewing, because if it was overcrowded in the sightings, you wouldn't be able to get good views, you wouldn't all be able to have a nice angle on the different animals, whereas we limit our sightings to 3 vehicles per sighting, sometimes less than that if the bush is too.
Yeah, you can crash cut, yeah. Hello everybody, sorry about that speedy crash cut away from the Roman god that is Scott Dyson. He will continue looking for the lions. I'm afraid Wendy, being a recalcitrant old cow that she is still giving a bit of trouble. Now, we have had reports of alarm calling zebras not too far from here, where there were some tracks of a young male leopard just down here, not too far from where Madiba and Shadow was seen yesterday. So I'm rather hoping it might be young Madiba, and we'll see if we can get in there and find him. If I do suddenly look like I've been shocked by something, it means that the Game Drive radio is now talking in my ear. It isn't at the moment. But it was around about here that we hoped to see young Madiba. I'm just retrieving my map at the moment to make sure that I'm in the right place. Arethusa is slightly unfamiliar, but we're now in exactly the right place. There we go. Now, let us keep our eyes open. Listen for some alarm calls. Plenty of babblers calling. Our eye out for tracks. Up in the trees. So leopards do like this kind of thick vegetation. It obviously offers them very good hiding. We're also quite close to the Arethusa Lodge. I think he's around here. He's not far from where his mum left him, and he doesn't generally stray too far from where she leaves him. So we'll just drive very slowly around here, see if we can't hear some tracks. No, you don't hear tracks. You see tracks, or hear some alarm calls. Oh, that looks quite good. There's a car off road there. Station off road on pump track. Confirm you have found something there. Okay, they did have a brief view. Okay, copy that. Shall I go around the other side? Their cars are a bit long, so we'll go around the other side, see what we can find. Copy that. This is quite exciting. So he says he thinks he had a brief view of the leopard, but I'm not sure which or how or when or if exactly. Let's go through here. This seems like the most logical route to follow. Brian, if you see a leopard, do tap me gently upon the shoulder and I will stop the car. Now you see the cats will move in this kind of weather. We're very, very close to the lodge. I don't see him there. I got him. Just go a little bit forward. I can see camera lenses pointing quite frantically. But I don't hear their machine gun fire. quite exciting, I must say. I'd love to find them just lying in the drainage line there, perhaps on the termite mound. Got him. Brian has, of course, has got eyes not unlike a pair of Swarovski binoculars. There are 3 Nyala walking down there, I see. Have you got visual there? No answer. Go ahead. Okay, they have got him. They've got him down there. Okay, I'm going to try. We're just going to try and maneuver this car in there. It's not going to be very easy. No, don't worry, I'll get in. These little cars are wonderfully maneuverable. This is very exciting. I think it's probably young Madiba. There are some Nyala here, which I don't want you to worry about us frightening away for him, because I don't think he's going to make any attempt to try and kill them. Okay. Sorry about the noise, everyone. We can't run over these tambuti trees, which are protected species, very beautiful. So we have to do a number of 165-point turns to get in here. There he is. Not a great view, everybody, but we will get you a view. See you there, Brian. I think that's the male. Or is it? Brian, can you get him there? I'm going to sneak a little bit forward for you. How's that? There we go. Isn't that wonderful, everybody? Wonderful, wonderful. Such a magnificent little fellow. Now that is Madiba. With this very distinctive 3-3 spot pattern. And I don't think he's going to spend too long in here. He may now throw egg on my face, of course, but he's obviously been moving around. And that's a function of the temperature and the fact that he's just a young fellow and he likes to move around and enjoy himself, chasing the odd thing, investigating, chewing on branches. Oh, look at him. So although he looks I think he still looks quite young. His face is definitely not filled out at all. We were tracking him the other day and it was very, very clear how much bigger his feet are now than his mum's. And I tell you what, 3 or 4 weeks ago you couldn't tell the difference between them. Now his are just very clearly much bigger. He'll be panting slightly just because he's been moving around, I think. But that is such a typical young leopard face, that. Just doesn't have the kind of severe. A male leopard looks very severe. A big adult, severe, with a big dewlap underneath his chin and a much more muscular neck. He still looks quite cuddly, if you like. Still wouldn't try and cuddle him, but he does, even on a day like today, but he does look quite cuddly. Brian's looking at me as though I'm mad. I think I might be. So I'm sure Shadow is off hunting again. She seems to be a highly successful hunter. And remember that we saw her mating not too long ago with Tingana, about 3 weeks ago, and then again with the Anderson male. Quite a, shall we say, liberal woman, and she's quite. It's totally normal for leopards to do that, and it's quite possible that she's now pregnant. No. That's extremely selfish of him. I'm just going to look around me to see if I can find a way through here. Don't hold out much hope. Certainly not without taking what little is left of Jika's body panels off. Take it around there, Brian. No, well then we won't be able to get into the drainage line. I think we'll just sit here for a little while and see if he doesn't stand up. It's very unkind of him to have looked to the way of the other game drive vehicle and not us. You can maybe hear them. While we wait, Brian's going to show you the trees around us, and I'm going to show you what I mean by the tambuetis. They've got these very distinctive black, charcoal grey, black bark, and they're a protected tree species as far as I understand it, and they grow in they grow in these thick stands, and at the moment they're not a great deal to look at because they don't have any leaves on them, but when they do, they're very beautiful trees. And the most notable thing about them, of course, is the fact that they have a very toxic milky latex in them, and it can actually kill people if you ingest enough of it. I had a tracker once called Elvis, and Elvis used to purge his bowels once every 6 months or so by making a concoction from the tambueti tree. He used to arrive on game drive in his woolly hat, much like the one I'm wearing now, but woollier, sweating profusely in the middle of the summer, and I'd say, "Elvis, what's wrong? Have you got malaria?" And he'd say, "No, the tambuet. I've taken the tambueti," and that meant that he was, he had to spend quite a lot of time off the vehicle for that day. I'm not sure how we're going to get any closer than this, I'm afraid. We can maybe try and go around a little bit. But I know that there's no access from the other side. Now, if you were to just drive straight past here, you'd have no idea that in there was one of the stars of this whole show. Magnificent little male leopard called Madiba, so named for the father of our nation, Nelson Mandela. There we go, he's picked his head up. So some astonishing information coming in from Raisa in Finland. Raisa, thank you for this. It's actually a really interesting discussion topic, and I don't think there's any definitive answer to your question, but it will open up a whole lot of interesting stuff. So you say that Shadow has had 2 estrus cycles between the ages of, she's now 9 years old, between the ages of, I think it was 4 and now, so in 5 years, she's had 2 estrus cycles a year. And you say Karula has only had 5 estrus cycles in the same period, and she's 2 years older. And I think your question is there some correlation with that and the fact that Shadow has lost 6 litters of cubs? I think what you'll find is that the correlation is, okay, it's difficult to say, and this is why I think it's so interesting. So, on the one hand, what we could say is that because she's lost the cubs, she's come into estrus more often. So a leopard that comes into estrus, or a leopard that loses cubs, will come into estrus very quickly thereafter and become pregnant again. And normally what happens is that she won't then come into estrus for at least, it's normally at least 17 months after she's birthed new cubs, right? So in fact, yeah, so that's probably about right. Then, what is interesting is that we've just seen shadow mating now, when this little leopard is only 12 months old, and so her birth interval would then, instead of being 17 or 18 months, which is at the really early edge of the birthing interval, it would be 3 months earlier than that, at 15 months, were she to fall pregnant now. So that begs the question, as Raisa says, is she not coming into estrus too soon? Is she not coming into estrus while her cubs are still young, and that's why she's losing them? Raisa, until I saw her coming into estrus and mating with a cub this age, I would have said no, I think that's unlikely. Now I think it is quite likely. I have got myself into quite a lot of trouble by suggesting that Shadow is perhaps a bad mother, given that she's lost 6 litters of cubs. Scott thinks I'm mad. He thinks she's just been very unlucky, and that hyenas and male leopards and lions have played a huge part in the death of cubs, and that may well be true. But I wonder if I haven't been unfair of her, because her physiology is slightly different from, and slightly anomalous to what it perhaps should be if she wants to raise cubs. So she would naturally be neglectful of cubs if she's coming into estrus too early. It's all rather interesting, I think. So Raisa, I think, in quick summary to your question, I think it could go both ways. She's either coming into estrus because she's losing the cubs, or perhaps, and this is less likely but possible with this leopard, she's coming into estrus soon and therefore ignoring the cubs and therefore losing them. So I think that's quite an interesting discussion. Thank you all the way from Finland. This leopard is fast asleep and hiding from us right now. So Sharon and Monique, as we look at the 3 spots that this leopard is showing us today, I suppose we can't complain, he's normally very good about it. Sharon and Monique, you want to know how you spell Madiba. In a lot of our indigenous languages, except Shangaan actually, which tends to be a lot more difficult to spell, you spell it as you hear it. So Madiba would be M-A-D-I-B-A, M-A-D-I-B-A. And it is the praise name from Madiba's clan, as far as I understand it, if not the clan name, and that's why he was called Madiba. I'm not convinced of the name myself, because he's hardly a grandfatherly character, this particular Madiba. His namesake, of course, was. There we go, heads up, marvellous. Huge action going on here in the drainage line. Gilly in Wisconsin, as we look at the back end of Madiba's head through about 7 tons of wood, you'd like to know, have his eyes turned from the baby blue of a leopard cub to the green of the adult, or well, greenish yellow of the adult? Gilly, they have changed, but there is still a slight tinge of blue, which is very pleasant to look at. But they are still have definitely changed a lot, and probably will do further over the next months or so. Some males retain those blue eyes, but it's very, very seldom. I'm just going to find out from this fellow who's leaving now, A, what the view is like there, and B, if anyone else is coming into it. I think we're going to have to stay here. I think there's another vehicle coming in from the other side, which is fine. What I'm going to try and do, everybody, is just see if I can't maneuver around. I'm not convinced I'm going to be able to. We may lose Brian in the process, but we're going to have a quick go and see.
Welcome back, everyone. And how awesome is it that James managed to get you guys into a position to view Madiba, the up-and-coming star of Safari Live. I'd love to know exactly how much time we have spent with him over the last few months, but certainly more time with him than any other leopard. And aren't we so fortunate to be able to be watching him grow? And I think we've still, if we're lucky, going to have around another year, about up to a year of more viewing with him before he moves out of this area where he's growing up. And back to the topic of how he's growing up, just about 2 months ago it was really difficult to differentiate between his track and his mother's track, whereas now it is clear as day who he is and who she is, and his tracks are now considerably larger than hers. So quite useful for us, as there was that tricky stage where we didn't know who was who, but now it's very easy to distinguish between their tracks, and he's going to continue to grow into a much bigger leopard over the coming months. Jeandre and myself haven't been hugely fortunate in the way of sighting since you've been gone, so we haven't missed out on anything. Aubrey and Ephraim are still searching in Buffelshoek for the 4 lioness, presumably from the Inkohuma Pride, but haven't had any joy. And what we've decided to do is slowly start making our way towards the hyena den site, which we'll probably be at in about 5 minutes or so. It's been a while since I spent some time there, so looking forward to trying our luck. There's no guarantee that it is going to be active, but certainly worth a try. And we don't really have many other leads to go on the way of leopard tracks or lion tracks. And most of the other animals seem to be hiding out. And this weather, I think, may be good for one place, and that is the hyena den. But only time will tell.